Hey, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Living Your Life. This episode, we're welcoming two guests to discuss sickle cell trait. Farron Dozier is a distinguished advocate recognized as the Veteran of the Year in 2018 in Fontana, California. He's a passionate advocate for sickle cell trait awareness. He is also dedicated to raising awareness about veteran suicide prevention. He'll be joined by Dr.Maisha Pesante. Dr. Pesante influences community health as a writer, on-air host, and public speaker. She is a philanthropist and community leader who champions the causes of the underserved and underinsurance as she educates us about sickle cell trait. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Farron Dozier and Dr. Maisha Pesante. How y'all doing?
Wonderful.
Kier, I just want to say one thing before we get started. You know, I talk a lot, but for the first time on this podcast, I ain't saying nothing. Because these people right here, they gonna tell it because I've been screaming. I can sit back.
Oh, you know what? And you know what? You have Dr. Hebert. Y'all know Dr. Hebert. Whole thing he's been saying, and I mean this. This is why this episode is so important to him. We've been talking about sickle cell trait. And the reason why this is so important, see, people understand that sickle cell trait is important because that trait is what makes me. That trait is what makes me have all the complications I have. That trait, I can't really stand that trait. You know, but that trait got me here, though, at the same time. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship. But Dr. Hebert has been screaming this from the top of his lungs why this is so important. And you know what, Dr. Hebert? Before we get to our guest, just go ahead and scream one more time about Dr. Hebert. Be serious.
I'm done.
That's it.
That's it.
We're good. And you know what? Let's just get to it. Dr. Maisha Pesante, listen. Why can sickle cell trait cause problems to begin with in the beginning? What happens?
The quick answer is the same reason that sickle cell can cause problems. So you have one or two defective genes that cause your red blood cells to be stiffer, stickier, and not buoyant. You know how the little donut that you, if you're swimming and they go to save you, and it can bounce? A red blood cell should be shaped kind of like that, and it should be able to fold and bounce back like a little pillow. Well, when you have sickle cell or sickle cell trait, when it folds, usually it can't bounce back. And so it gets stuck. Same reason.
You know, that's when I first started to find out, when I first saw, which I didn't understand younger, I was around like in my mid-20s, when I first really saw my blood under a microscope. When they showed it to me, that's shocking. Because you're saying, like, that's what's going through my body? Those are things that's causing the problems? These little people, these little agitators, they get together and start a party and everything else goes wrong with me? And you see, and so, and Dr. Hebert has been saying this for so long, that we could just, with trait, you could just drop dead. Even with trait. And so, I want to know about this, Farron. This is what I want to know about this. I saw this word for the first time in my life. Rhabdomyolysis.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And just say the word for me by itself.
Rhabdomyolysis.
Rhabdomyolysis. And why do athletes and some people with sickle cell trait gene need to be careful about this?
You said it. In some cases, but they say rare cases, an athlete or a military soldier can collapse from sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdomyolysis as a trigger. But you don't have to be in one of those categories. You could be just somebody at the gym hanging out. You could be in Denver, Colorado skiing. So that rhabdomyolysis, anybody can experience that. But with sickle cell trait, we're more susceptible of having a complication with that.
Have you seen that a lot in the military? Oh, go ahead, Bear.
Let me ask a question. I said I was going to be quiet, but I like So let me ask a question, and this is really to both of you.
Yes.
Why do you think that doctors still aren't being trained that this is the case? Because the hematologic society, the hematology society, they still will say as a statement that ain't true. that sickle cell trait doesn't cause any of these things. What is up with that? What do y'all think?
Let me, Dr. Hebert, the most important thing that I've learned these last 13 years of being an advocate is the language. Language is going to be very important on how we talk and describe sickle cell trait with rhabdo. It could be a secondary complication. You could be sick, have a cold, and because your body is already under stress, you could be dehydrated. And just by having those factors in place, that could cause that red blood cell to mutate. And then the rhabdomyolysis, because there's no oxygen getting to the muscles, can trigger that condition. So is it the actual cause of it? I don't know, but there are things that can be happening to your body that you don't know or not paying attention to that can trigger that secondary issue with that trait. That's what I believe.
What do you say, Doc?
Yes, so ASH and the CDC have put out fact sheets on CDC's website.
Yeah.
Where they actually explain that there can be, and they will say rare, complications. And they talk about athletes having complications. They talk about people with eye injuries. They talk about pretty much anybody who gets dehydrated, goes to an altitude for whatever reason. And so on the one hand, they say that, and on the other hand, they say, but you could have these complications. There's stigma. And that's the bottom line. There's a CDC video on YouTube where they talk about sickle cell disease and the stigma that goes along with it and the difficulties getting good treatment. So you go from having 100,000 to 300,000 patients to having 5 million patients.
That's right.
If you say that sickle cell trait can also cause symptoms. So they say it's rare, but then they say some do have all of these complications. And when you look at it, it's the same complications you have with sickle cell.
In your eyes, what does that look like when they say the stigma? Everybody has a different definition of what the stigma is. Just say the stigma. What is your stigma?
For me, the stigma mostly is the fear of something happening and that company being the cause or being liable for that. And that's another reason why the NCAA made it mandatory, because they didn't want to be liable for any sudden death. So the stigma for me is more, you could say because we're Black, but I believe it's a more concern for them protecting themselves. And so why take on that liability?
Yeah, I agree. And then there's also the stigma of, when you think about it, the main treatment, and this makes it difficult for all of us, right? The main treatment is opioids. So now if you say sickle cell trait can also crisis, one, when you have sickle cell trait, it doesn't show in your labs that you're having a crisis, right? It's an subjective experience. So doctors have to give you a very serious treatment, which is opioids. And we all are now aware of the effects of opioids for something they can't have a lot of trouble proving is happening. And by the time you see the change in the labs with sickle cell trait, it's too late. That patient is headed towards a very morbid outcome. There's a lot of morbidity and mortality by the time you see changes in the laboratory findings. And it makes it very difficult because it's very subjective. And a doctor doesn't want to risk their career on, I gave this potentially life-threatening medicine that can make you stop breathing for something I cannot prove is happening. And that's the difficulty on the medical side. So we at Inscription and in partnership with WDC on SCT, we are developing we have classes that we are already teaching to help doctors know what to look for and how to document, as well as to help patients know what to say, to explain to the doctors what is happening in a clear way so the doctor can document properly, this is what's happening and this is why I really do need to treat this patient, even though I don't see the change in labs.
Well, you know what's crazy? What Kier's going to say, I've known him for a while now. He's going to say, man, I can't even get a doctor to believe me when I come in there and I have sickle cell disease. And I'm telling you, I have pain, man. And I just got to the swimming pool and I have pain and they won't believe me then. You can mean to tell me they're going to have people that have sickle cell trait and they going to believe them? That ain't going to happen. Yeah. How'd I do?
No, man, let me tell you something, man. I can't even get them to believe. No, I'm just playing. No, here's the thing. No, here's the thing. Seriously, because of sickle cell trait, and they may experience some of the things I experienced as having sickle cell disease. So For them to even find out if they have trait, what test do they need to know that?
You want me to
Doc?
go?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead, Doc.
you're the doc.
The main test is the hemoglobin electrophoresis. So anybody should get something called a CBC. That's your complete blood count. And then a hemoglobin electrophoresis. And one of the things we offer in the work that we're doing, we offer counseling and consultations. So you can go to Inscription's website or WDC on SCT and find us, and we can do individualized consultations and we can get your labs ordered. And sometimes we do community events where we do mass testing, and that'll be coming up as well. But everybody needs to get tested and know your status so that you know if you're starting to have symptoms, that it's not just, oh, I worked out too hard, it'll pass, or what's going on. And we help patients with that.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, see, the reason why people die is because they were never told that they have to stop. You see, so if you know you have sickle cell trait, and I tell you, say blood, if you are working out, because see, the football players, they don't die during the game because that's stop, start, stop, start. They die during the training workout because they're being pushed and pushed and pushed, and they don't stop. So that's what makes them die. So my thing is that the crime, you asked about testing, the crime is that everybody that's of childbearing age right now in America knows, can get their status. They was tested at birth, everybody, right? So the lack of the aggregation of the data that exists is causing the issue. And that is a crime to me. That's a crime. And that's where I'm taking this because I can't stop. That's why I need Dr. Maisha. Dr. Maisha going to spearhead this thing, and I'm just going to ride her coattails because this is what we feel between and
Come on, brother. Come on, let's go. Let's do it. I'm excited. We want to teach the people as well as the patients. So we can start getting into the universities, to the community events, to the medical schools, and retrain people. We can continue. We did do SET 360. We did a full spectrum education, and we talked about the sickle cell hemoglobinopathies. And to touch on what you said about you can't even get proper care for sickle cell, we are stronger together. Sickle cell alone is 100,000 to 300,000. We are 5 million together. And I see that people, we started saying, me and Farron, we started saying we are stronger together 5 years ago, I think. And now everyone's saying it. So together, when we fight the fight for sickle cell trait and make people aware of it, by default, they're going to know more about sickle cell disease. If they understand that people with sickle cell trait get pain crisis, what about people who don't have any healthy hemoglobin genes? Both genes are unhealthy. They need care and they need it quickly. So I have developed protocols based on over 15 years of evaluating the literature and putting coursework together. So we teach those protocols. We can teach those protocols to physicians. Yeah, so Inscription, we've done that work. And we're going to start having Trait Tribe talks once a month. The first one will come up on October 3rd.
Like 3T?
Trait
Tribe talk.
Trait Tribe talk.
I was always showing that up for you. That's a hard thing to say. Trait Tribe talks. Just 3 T's.
He said 3 T.
3 T's. And you know what? Let me just say this, Farron, because you've been in the military and you guys have strenuous workouts. And have you seen this happen before with soldiers?
I experienced it personally. Yeah. So yeah, and I've heard from all different branches. I was Army, so Air Force, Marines, Navy. Navy have had some cadets, women cadets, die most recently from this same kind of conversation from sickle cell trait with the exertion with the rhabdo. So it's continuing to happen.
Because and it's like, this is directly related to just working out. This has nothing to do with just sitting around. Is this just putting the body under tremendous stress that this happens?
Well,
That's
again,
a controversial question.
Yeah, that's a controversial because you're talking about dehydration. Yeah, you talk about dehydration. You talk about elevation. You talk about so many. I met a guy who was in the Air Force who knew he had a cold, who knew he had a cold, taking that test before with a cold, but that perfect morning, he had the sickle cell trait exertion with the rhabdo. His CK creatinine kinase levels were over 100 something thousand. Had to learn how to walk again because of the muscle damage from the rhabdo. So you can't just say it's one measure. It's an individual case by case, but the sickle cell trait is connected, and we're susceptible for having that rhabdo. But anybody can get rhabdo. That's the
But this
thing.
is the thing.
Anybody can get rhabdo.
This is the thing, Farron. This is the thing that drives me crazy. In medicine, and Dr. Maisha will definitely say this. In medicine, it's all about statistics and it's all about probability, right?
Yes.
So, but nobody is more against that concept than doctors themselves. We will tell everybody in the world, oh, you don't need antibiotics for a cold. You don't need antibiotics for a cold. Every time I have a doctor friend whose child has a cold, they on antibiotics. Because that's the thing. So when we talk about statistics, if something can be rare, it don't matter, because if it happens to you, it's 100%.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you just need to know. You just need to know. And like I mentioned to Farron the other day, people will tell you every day, Michael Jackson did the moonwalk. Michael Jackson did the moonwalk. Do you know where he did it first? Michael Jackson did the moonwalk first at the Sickle Cell Telethon. And guess what ain't on right now? Guess what they don't have now? The Sickle Cell Telethon. And we don't even have a public service announcement. We don't have a telethon. We don't have nothing. And that's because of this right here. And I didn't go here. I went right here. That is because of our skin color.
Doc, it's okay, Doc. Doc, it's okay. He said it. It's okay. That's how you feel. Okay, I understand. I get the treatment.
I wasn't supposed to say that.
Yo, no, you said it because we don't have a PSA. We don't have a sickle cell-a-thon. We don't have any of those things. We don't have the level of awareness. And that's why we're doing this show. It's okay to tell the truth. Well, I don't know why everybody's scared of just the facts. I mean, I need this show out just so somebody know I don't want to sit in the hospital no more without getting treatment. I don't want to sit no more hours in the emergency room. And I don't want that for anybody with sickle cell trait either. Because you know what? One thing about me was, man, like I see this rhabdo affects a lot of people, but working out, that was my thing. You know, being an athlete, you know, that was my thing. But I know there are people who have a sickle cell trait, and you know, they don't even know they're athletes, but they don't even know if they have the trait. But see, they got to get blood tests. And why is it important for them to get blood tests? And how can that help everybody? Now, and I ain't just talking about just for athletes. I'm just talking about everybody, period.
Everybody needs to know their status. What's athletic for you might be what's not athletic for you might be athletic for someone else. What I have noticed, what sickle cell trait patients tell me, is that they're very fatigued. Sometimes they'll actually be obese. And what happens is, from the time that they're children, whenever they try to do anything athletic, they feel so bad. They get so tired. They get so much pain. So then they just don't work out. So then doing a simple walk in 85-degree weather can provoke a pain crisis for that person. Whereas for someone else, the crisis only comes if they run really hard. Mostly everybody is walking around dehydrated. Everybody is. And dehydration, by ASH and CDC's own admission, is a trigger for a pain crisis for sickle cell trait. So everybody can have those same problems, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that you worked out. So the recommendation is slow, graded increase in activity, which will open up your vessels over time and let you develop new vessel pathways to diminish crisis.
But the other part of that is we're sickle cell trait carriers. There are hundreds of other red blood cell conditions, as you know, that if I have the trait and I ask my mate, do you have sickle cell trait? She says no, and she doesn't get tested. She could have thalassemia, C, D, O, A, rab. So we're talking about not just from athletic, but also creating that family. So why not have people be aware of your genotype, because it may not be sickle cell trait, but your mate could have another red blood cell condition, and you can have that baby with a type of sickle cell disease or disorder.
Yeah, and that's the importance of why we need to know our status. because, like I said, we don't want to spring this on anybody. We're not trying to scare anybody, because we just want you to just know your status, and it's not just for you to know. And I'm glad you said that, Farron. Your spouse or your partner needs to know. I mean, because this lifespan that I have with sickle cell disease alone myself, I can't tell you how many times I've been hospitalized. I know in my lifetime at least over 100. Over 100, and just because my parents didn't know their status. And that's what happens. My mother had the trait, my father had the hemoglobin, and then here I come along, and now everybody's scrambling. Everybody's scrambling. Everybody trying to figure out. And there's 5 nurses in my family at this point in time. 5. My mother, my grandmother, my aunts, my cousins, nurses. And this is what they realized. They came up with a game plan. So for me, I'm blessed in the fact that I had nurses that doctors just couldn't tell them anything. They couldn't tell you anything, because some people just go along with what the doctor said. Well, he really don't need this opioid because doctor says they don't want to put him on that. We're going to try him just with some oxygen and an IV. And that person's sitting there suffering. And that's not even, and if that's happening to people with sickle cell disease, I know good and well it's happening with people with trait.
I've had trait pain. I've had trait pain in my arm. My mom would tell you since I was 2 years old. I remember being 5 and my left arm ached like crazy. And they took me to the doctor in 1975 and told my parents it was growing pains. I'm 53 today,
Right,
and I still have that same pain.
This
I
ain't
have
a TV
that
show.
same pain.
Yeah, this hurts. It's not a TV show. This ain't growing pain. This is real.
And the problem. Go ahead, Doc.
I've seen a lot of patients with sickle cell trait describe the same thing that Farron just described. And what has happened with Farron is there's an area that sustained damage, and the tissue there died, just like when the heart dies in a certain area. So that's what's happening. And that becomes chronic pain. And then they get new pain on top of the old pain. And so we have to understand that you have to treat the chronic pain and the new pain. I tell doctors, take a rubber band, tie it around the tip of your pinky, leave it there for 30 minutes and see how your pinky feels. That's how a person with sickle cell or sickle cell trait feels all over their body.
Damn. You just messed me up with that one, Doc.
I don't know.
They ain't trying that. They ain't trying that.
I don't know about that one.
But see, this is the
pinky
thing.
test.
See, this is the thing that we fight so much, because if say somebody's got sickle cell trait, and then y'all decide y'all want to have a baby, right? And the other person has sickle cell trait. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine, okay? But you should know. You should know what's going to happen.
Be informed.
Because I will tell you, if I tell you everything that's going to happen, we out here spending billions of dollars on CRISPR technology, all this billions of dollars on this stuff, but we don't have a PSA to stop the disease. Because it's like, look, and I'm gonna do my best Chris Rock impression. No, you can't make no money on the disease. You make the money on the treatment. So it's hard to cure. Sometimes you feel like they don't want no cure. They want to keep the disease. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what I'm saying is that nobody's making the inroads. We in America, what we do is we have people on the top of a cliff, and people keep falling off. So they build a $1 million orthopedic surgery clinic at the bottom of the cliff to fix all the broken legs. When all they got to do is put a $10 fence up, nobody fall off the damn cliff. We don't do that. We don't do that because
we're working on the fence. That's what we're doing. We're working on the
fence.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. And it's not that I don't necessarily say we have to get rid of the disease, but we do have to improve the treatment in terms of prevention of episodes.
If you know that
you have it, then you can do that. And you can decide ahead of time, we don't want to have children together. We want to be together, but we don't want to have children. Or we're going to have children, and we know that we need to take a lot of extra precautions.
I don't like to compare, but the Jewish community, what they did with Tay-Sex is what we could do with our sickle cell trait. And they did I think they reduced their babies from 5,000 to like 1,000 being born with Tay-Sex. But they came together as a community they came together as a leadership and they said to those families, you've got to be tested. And they encouraged them not to have children if they were going to be together. We're not trying to tell people what to do. We already been, as black people, we don't want to be told what. We got so much stuff in our background of our subconscious mind of all the stuff that happened.
Well, you know what, Farron? Let me tell you something else. Well, then I should have got married then. Because that's all my wife do. That's all my wife do is tell me what to do. I should have no business walking down that aisle. I should have just stayed. I should have just not even showed up. But that's my entire life.
Maybe you
And
should have
I
been
don't like
informed
doing.
first. You should
You
have
know
been
what I'm
informed first.
And now,
You
The
didn't see the
consequences.
yeah.
You didn't see
But
the
you know,
fine print.
You didn't know all the different
I
kind of
ain't know.
consequences.
I ain't know. I'm so trained now. I come home now and just sit in the corner. I don't know what she got for me. I just be sitting there. But you know what?
You got a
I
good
will say this
woman.
though. Yeah, I do. She's beautiful. I do. I do need to know this though. Like for this, we talk about this when y'all say sickle cell trait and sickle cell coming together. Have y'all thought about the plan on how that makes? Who has that plan to make that happen, or what is the goal for that? Oh, and what should we be looking for that to come out? What is the outcome?
Can I answer that for the advocate, Dr. Maisha, first? Sickle cell trait has its own awareness, education, and prevention. Sickle cell disease has its own awareness, education, and prevention. They meet at that conversation of having a family. So at that level, we have to put those together and have a dialogue together. But we have to separate sickle cell trait awareness, education, and prevention by itself so people can come to that conversation and get that information. I believe it's been so drowned out together. When you Google sickle cell trait, sickle cell disease is at the top of the list. So it's together, but it's separate. And that's why I say the language of how we put this package, this conversation together is going to be very important, because we have to language it so people don't feel like they're excluded, because the exclusion is more emotional charge. And if you read it that way, then you're going to react to it. We don't want you to react. We're together, but the awareness pieces have to be separate so that people with the trait can get exactly what they need to understand about the trait awareness. And that's how we bring it together. Right now, it's just all combined together. And so you come to a conference like where I'm at, it's great, but you got 20 minutes, an hour of sickle cell trait, and then 18 hours of sickle cell disease talk. Like, we need to have a conversation where trait can come and get that information specifically for them. That's my view.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody who has sickle cell disease automatically have parents who have sickle cell trait. When you talk about caregiver fatigue, those caregivers may be experiencing similar symptoms and think it's all in their head. So we just need to expand the conversation. Whenever we have a conference or an event, there needs to be more time and education dedicated to sickle cell trait. We need to just do that together and look at it. The trait has to be mentioned and discussed, and it has to be understood that there are people who are sick as well with quote unquote just trait. So what I normally say is the sickle cell hemoglobinopathies, and they include, and I explain what all is included. And then I talk about what trait crisis looks like and what sickle cell crisis look like, what those labs look like here, what those labs look like there, what the patients tell me here, what the patients tell me here. So that's where we come together. We just have to have the conversation.
That's why she's a trait doctor.
I know. And I'm
That's
talking
why
about,
she's
I'm talking about, and I mean a very good one, because I ain't never seen nobody just roll me down.
Did you do that? Did you see that? You saw that?
Did you see this here? I saw all that. That right there let me know she is making a distinction.
Hey,
I
you
get
see?
it. Oh man, best example I ever did. Great people. Dr.Maisha Pesante, thank you so much, Darren. Farron, thank you so much, brother, for
No
coming
problem.
on
Thank
here
you.
and
Thank
discussing
you.
this, man. I mean, this has really been so informative for me by myself, because I found out so much about the trait that I just didn't know before. You know, and you know, my mother has the trait, and she would tell me that she had some of the pains in her arms and in her legs. And you know, Farron, you just said the same thing. And so, you know, and I'm talking about where she's not walking in her hips, and I get it,
Yes.
you know. And so I didn't even know that how that came about, you know, and I've learned how important it is it's different for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's trait and everybody's pain is different. You know, some people get it from working out, some people get it from walking. Did you see what I just did there?
Why?
Did you see what I did?
He
Did I
separated.
just
Did you
picked
see the
up?
It's
hands? Did
contagious.
you see it?
It's
Yeah.
contagious. It's
And you
contagious.
know, so before we get out of here though, I give everybody a chance on the show in closing to go
Yeah.
ahead and advocate for their cause and what it is that you're doing. And so, Doc, you can go ahead and let them know what you really want people to understand about why this is so important and why you became a trait doctor.
We believe in making whole human wellness a reality. We want everyone to feel whole and healthy and live their best lives, to function to the fullest capacity possible for them as an individual by creating health in their lives all the way around. Wellness, we use multiple modalities, we use herbs, we use lifestyle changes, and we use Western medications when appropriate. We want people to know that they have a voice, that we will listen and we will attend to what is actually happening with that patient at that time as an individual. And we try to give the same care that we would give to our family, our own family member. Like Dr. Corey mentioned earlier, you know, if I would give my child an antibiotic, I'll offer your child one. That's what we want to do at Inscription and at WD on SCT. These are the things that we are trying to do. Make everyone have a better life.
And Dr. Maisha, how can they get in contact with you? Give like your stuff.
So we'll give you the actual written out. The easiest thing is for people just to go to the Trait Tribe Talk website. It's easier. It's just Trait, TRAIT, Tribe, TRIBE, Trait Tribe. If you Google that, you'll be able to go there. Inscription is the educational foundation that we are teaching about trait and other illnesses and herbs and things like that. And then WD on SCT, you can always find us through them as
well. Yeah, she has a tab on WDC on SCT that says "Who is Dr. Maisha?" and it takes you to all those links. You know, for me, like I said, I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait till I was 29 years old, 10 years in the military. And the Air Force base that I was connected to found my trait because I did my second physical. And they gave me no pamphlet. They said, trait has no complications. You'll be fine. I was done having children. So in one ear, out the other. That was 99. In 06, I collapsed at my Master Sergeant Academy from exertional sickling after I finished a 2-mile run and passed that run.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2010 that I met an officer friend of mine who we passed each other on the base after 5 years of not seeing each other. And he asked me, how was I doing? I said, you don't want to know. He's like, tell me. I'm like, man, I could barely walk. My muscles, I got mental health appointments now. I think I'm depressed. He's like, oh, my muscles locked up one time, but I have sickle cell trait. So I have to drink extra water, take these vitamins. And I'm standing there like, what? And then I remembered my physical from 1999. Yeah. And I got a copy of it. I read it. And sure enough, positive sickle cell trait test. I took that to my rheumatologist because now I'm diagnosed with arthritis. She retested my blood and said 40% of your red blood cells are the S trait. And then we did more research and found that athletes, military have collapsed and died from sickle cell trait and rhabdo. Wow. So I go back to the base that I collapsed at for the last 8 years. Every class, almost 10 times out the year, I go there to educate those soldiers that are coming to that schoolhouse where I collapsed, and I give them information. I'm blessed because in 2020, the Army has implemented retesting all of their Army soldiers at their annual physical to identify sickle cell trait carriers so they can be identified finally. I'm not saying I caused that, but I know that the work that I've been doing the last 13 years, forcing them to say, you got to look, you got to look, you got to look. They finally said, you know what? We did some research and we're going to just retest the entire Army forces on their annual physical. So that's the work that I'm doing. WDC on SCT.org. I travel up there almost 10 times out the year to do that education.
Hey, man. That's big, bro. Thank you for your service, first of all.
No doubt. Real. Thank you for paying your taxes.
Hey, man, it's all good, brother. I ain't got no choice, man. But I tell you what, man. I mean, today was really one of the better shows I've ever had on this show, man, because let me tell you something. Who knew trait was that powerful?
Yeah.
Who knew trait had that many complications with it?
And Kier, let me tell you one more thing. The reason why you have to be an advocate is because if people with sickle cell trait don't know, and people with sickle cell disease don't know, the doctors that are my age, they were never trained in this. Never. And the doctors that I'm talking to right now, the young residents that I'm training, they're still not being trained. Still, they may hear about it, in one lecture for 2 minutes. So one lecture, that's it. So the point is, you got to know, because nobody is going to be able to know for you.
Hey, well, Dr.Maisha Pesante, Farron Dozier, thank you so much for coming on Living Your Life.
No
man.
doubt, no doubt.
I mean, man, y'all did a fantastic job. We really appreciate
you. Yes, thank you.
Time to talk with us on Living Your Life, man. We thank you so much, man. Hey, man, let's hear it for them now. Yes, they was great. Look on Dr. Hebert. You got to give it to them. They did that. Education, they did that. They did it.
Hey, Dr. Hebert, besides Dr. Maisha, Dr. Tamia Austin, who did research on sickle cell trait specifically, and then having Dr. Hebert here, man, you guys are like my saving grace, because I found people that believed me. When I first came to this community, they was like, this is a sickle cell disease conference. What are you doing here? This ain't about no trait. Like, that was my experience coming in here in 2010.
Yeah, look.
Here we are 13 years later. It's being incorporated.
When I knew we were going to be doing this thing, I was like, I know I got to call.
Yeah.
My boy, Mr. Dozier, said, hey, Doc, gotta holler at you, player. It's about to be that time. I was like, hey, how you been, man? I was like, gotta get you on. Gotta get you on.
Yes.
Y'all did it,
I remember the conference we had. Farron brings a lot of people together.
Yeah.
Dr. Mia's research, Miss Ritchie with
Miss
the
Ritchie with the RMC.
Renal cell medullary carcinoma today.
Yeah, we didn't even touch that. That's a rare kidney cancer connected to sickle cell trait.
Connected to sickle cell trait. And then you. And I stopped feeling crazy. I was like, okay. Because as a physician, you're hearing the patients tell you. I had one little Mexican girl that her hemoglobin dropped to 6.8 with trait. And I retested her. She was just AS, nothing else. She dropped to 6.8, and they were still forcing her to run. They almost killed that child.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
but thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate this.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well, you know what? Y'all have to come back and talk to us and let us know what else you got going on. We appreciate you guys coming on. Live your life. Hey, another great episode. We'll catch y'all next time, man. Thank you, Dr. Pesante. Hey, Farron, we appreciate you, brother, man. Y'all have a good one.
God bless. God bless.
All right.